Seike smiled, for now he understood the judge was joking. He knew that Seike had always wished to be a samurai, a desire that seemed impossible, for he had been born into a family of tea merchants. Even though the tea business had enabled his father to provide well for his family, a fact that Seike's father had continually pointed out to him, Seike had not been consoled. Basho, the poet who was his personal hero, had been a samurai. All the glorious warriors whose lives were spent in pursuit of honor had been samurai. From the time he could read, Seike had studied the code of Bushido, instead of learning the skill of the abacus, as his father had wished. But knowing the way of the warrior did not make him a samurai. Then, while traveling on this very road 2 years ago, Seike had been witness to a crime. When the judge arrived to investigate, Seike had told him what he'd seen. The judge then sent him on a mission to join the kabuki troupe where the criminal was hiding. Seike had carried out his task so well that the judge had granted Seike's wish the only way possible, by adopting him and thus making him a member of a samurai family. Adopting sons, especially by those who had no sons, was not unusual, but it was almost unheard of for a foster son to be raised from the lowly merchant's class to samurai status. Seike always tried to make sure the judge would have no cause to regret it. His first father, truth to tell, was also pleased by the turn of events. The tea business would eventually have been passed on to Seike, the eldest son, even though his younger brother, Denzaburo, had a far better head for business. It had been the thought of his original family that had caused Seike's look of unhappiness. In a little while now, Seike and the judge would arrive at Osaka, the city where Seike had been born. He had not seen it since becoming the judge's son, and indeed he was not sure he wanted to. The judge was going there to investigate reports that a gang of smugglers was operating in Osaka's seaport. Though Seike had frequently proved useful in solving some other cases with the judge, he could hardly see how he might help this time. The judge had nodded when Seike expressed his doubts. "You are resourceful," the judge had replied, "and it is said that only someone born there understands how to get around Osaka." That was true. The city had begun as a village on the delta of Yodo, Aji, and several other rivers, where they flow into Osaka Bay at the eastern end of the great inland sea. As the town grew, the people had dug canals to connect the many waterways of the delta, and by now it was easier to get around the city by boat than on foot. It was said that there were more than 1,000 bridges in the city, and only a native-born Osakan knew where most of them were. Many could not even be found on maps. "At any rate," the judge had told Seike, "this will be a good time for you to pay your respects to your family." "You are my father now," said Seike, stopping himself from adding, "and I have no desire to return to my first one." "To be sure," replied the judge, "but you will always owe a debt to your parents who gave you life and cared for you before I became your father." Seike hung his head, glad that the judge had not heard his unspoken thought. A samurai, he reminded himself, should always be aware of the duty he owes to others. He shouldn't have to be prodded into paying respect to those who deserve it. The road curved around a grove of pine trees, and there, off in the distance, Seike saw the unmistakable outlines of Osaka Castle rising high above the city. The walls were made of thousands of stones that had been brought by ship into Osaka Bay from all parts of Japan. It was said that 1,000 ships a day arrived during the 3 years it took to build the castle. As a boy, Seike had often walked as close as he dared to stare at the castle and imagine what might go on behind those massive walls. He and his friends often speculated about the fabled octopus stone, said to be 5 times as tall as the tallest man and bearing the imprint of a giant octopus that had been caught in it when a volcano erupted beneath the sea.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.